before I start, quick question by a show of hands. How many of you believe that leadership is an innate characteristic that you were born with? Okay, got a few. How many people believe that leadership is something that you can learn? Okay, quite a few more. So I'll tell you a quick story. So in the mid-90s, I had been in graduate school for a really long time. And I was up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I had been cold for a really long time. The dot-com boom was happening out in Silicon Valley. They were calling, and so I went. I went west. I joined a company in Mountain View called Silicon Graphics. And for those of you who don't know, Silicon Graphics at that time was one of the it companies, high-end visualization computers. So if you watched Arnold Schwarzenegger movies in the 80s and 90s, all of those graphics were done by SGI computers. All of the cars and airplanes, things were designed by CAD programs on Silicon Graphics computers. They recruited me to come out and run their education group. Whoops. Their education division. So I was hired with no work experience, no management of P&L, no management of budget, no global experience outside of vacationing to run a very large group, and the focus with the sales team and with the product development team at Silicon Graphics and lead this large organization to drive their next priority for the firm. Okay, so this is not a small startup. You know, a lot of young people with no experience join small startups, but this was a Fortune 500 company, 11,000 employees worldwide, and over $12 billion in revenue. So here I am, and I'm running this large operation, okay? And so what happens is, several quarters in, I'm tripping over potholes, and I'm having all kinds of mistakes, and I'm trying to drive this team. And at a certain point, I go to the CEO, and I say, why is it that you hired me? Of all the people that you could have hired, why did you hire me? Because I am not a natural leader in this context. And so what he said was, we hired you for your entrepreneurship, we hired you for your analytic skills, and it doesn't really matter if you're a leader or not, right? So my first light goes off. It doesn't matter if you have good leadership skills. As long as we're making money, that's all that matters, okay? So that was number one. And, and number two, you can't learn it anyway. So hopefully you have that innate leadership characteristic, and you will be a great leader once you get up and running. But if you can't, back to point number one, it doesn't really matter. Let's just make some money. So I dedicated the rest of my career from that point on. I went back, I got a PhD, I studied this stuff at the Wharton School. I engaged in a lot of different jobs since then, constantly looking at what is it to answer that question. Can leadership be taught and learned, number one? And does it really matter? Does it have an impact on the commercial results of the firm and the company, or does it not really matter? And this is an age-old debate, and I know I'm preaching to the choir in this room. Most of you raised your hands that it can be learned. Most of you would raise your hands and say that it actually does have an impact on the bottom line. But you and I both know that a lot of people would argue the other way, that as long as you have good commercial, strong success, that's all that matters. So let me talk to you a little bit about that. What I'm going to do today is talk to you about a couple of themes. One,